Hello class, welcome to another lesson. Today's learning goal is I can understand that the absolute value of a rational number is its distance from zero on a number line, and interpret absolute value as the magnitude of a positive or negative number, or negative quantity in a real world situation. So go ahead and please write that down at the top of your notes. Today should be the 20th of September, and let's get started. So these are examples of absolute values. Okay? So the absolute value of negative 4 is 4, the absolute value of negative 11 is 11, the absolute value of a negative 131 is 131, the absolute value of negative 135 is 135. Notice that absolute values have this parallel lines around the number. The absolute value of negative 15 is 15, the absolute value of 15 is also 15, the absolute value of 25 is 25, and the absolute value of 33 is 33. Write down what you guys notice about this on the following question. So as you can see, whenever a number is negative, if you take the absolute value of it, it becomes positive. And the absolute value of a positive number is just that number itself. So the definition of an absolute value is the value of a real number regardless of its sign. And we'll talk about what real numbers are later on in the year. It is also the distance a number is away from zero. Okay? I feel like we've had some experience with this before. If not, this is the formal definition. Please write this down. In addition, absolute values are treated like they are parentheses. And remember, in order of operations, anything that happens in parentheses happens first. Same thing goes with absolute values. Anything that happens in absolute value happens first as well. So let's take a look at this one. The absolute value of negative 14 plus 11. Okay. So it's tempting to write 24 here, or excuse me, 25 here, because some people like to take the absolute value of 14 and 11 and then add them together. That is not what we do. We first solve what is inside this parentheses, or excuse me, inside this absolute value. So we start with negative 14 plus 11. So negative 14, as we know, is right here, and we're going to go add value to it, which means we're going to go right 11 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That puts us at negative 3. Right there. Now, as a result, when we simplify it, we get negative 3 inside an absolute value. The absolute value of negative 3. Again, the absolute value of a number is its value regardless of its sign. The value of negative 3 is 3 because it is also 3 integers away from 0. So it takes us 3 hops to get back to 0. Right there. Okay, so the answer to the absolute value of negative 14 plus 11 is 3. Let's take a look at another one. Excuse me. As we can see here, we have 3 times the absolute value of negative 1 plus 21. Again, we treat it as if it's parentheses. So we have negative 1. That's where we're going to start, and we're going to add value to it. So when we add value to it, we move 21 spaces to the right. And if we move 21 spaces to the right, that means we're going to go past 0 after 1 step, so negative 1 to 0, and then go 20 more steps to 20. So we got 3 times the absolute value of 20. And the absolute value of any positive number is just that number itself, so we got 3 times 20, which is 60. So the solution to this is 60. Let's try another one. Here we have the absolute value of negative 2 with a negative sign outside the absolute value. Again, we got to take care of the absolute value first before we even worry about this negative. Okay. Here, the absolute value of negative 2 is simply 2. But we have not taken care of the negative that is outside of it. So we put it here. This gets us our solution, because there's no more operations to do, and the absolute values in parentheses are gone. So therefore, our answer is -2. You can think of this negative sign outside of here as a -1 multiplied by the absolute value of -2. Okay? When you have a negative number, a negative sign outside of parentheses or outside an absolute value, that just is treated as a -1 times that expression inside the parentheses or absolute value. Notice here we have two sets of absolute values. I want you guys to go ahead and try this one on your own. So let's take a look at this. We're going to solve the first absolute values first. And whatever is inside the absolute value is what happens first. So we start at -2. We are now subtracting 11. So we are taking away value, which means we're going to go to the left. And as we had left 11 steps, we get the absolute value of -13 minus the absolute value of -21. As a result, we start taking the absolute values of -13 and -21. The absolute value of 13 is 13. The absolute value of -21, 21. Now we have to do 13 minus 21. So we start at 13. We're going to move 21 spaces this way, which means we're going to go past 0 and go an additional 8 steps, which gets us to -8. Now we need to talk about where this comes to play inside everyday situations. So, Tracy has $40 in her bank account. She borrows $150 from the bank. How much debt does she owe the bank? So we have $40 that she initially has, so we start with the 40. Since she's borrowing $150, and we're trying to see how much she owes the bank, excuse me, we're going to take away 150. Oops. $150. Which means we're starting at 40 and moving to the left 150 spots. Which means we're going to go past 0, 40 spots from there. And then an additional 110. So we got -110. But we're not asking how much money she actually has in real income. If that was the case, well, she'd be, we can say -110, but we're asking how much money she owes. Which means that she can only owe a positive amount. It doesn't make sense to owe a negative amount. Okay? So we have to take the absolute value of that. So in the end, she owes them $110. Notice that I'm using units in my answers. Okay? I want you guys to try this one on your own. Create an expression using absolute values and these numbers here that represents the following situation. So, Anna begins going down 14 feet. So we're going to start with -14 because downwards usually indicates negative numbers. Then she went up 2 feet, which means that she's going up. Upwards usually indicates positive, so we're going to go up to, adding value. Then she went 10 feet down more, subtracting 10. The question asks, how far away was she from the surface? We're not asking for how many feet she is away from the, or how low she is compared to the surface level. Okay, so that is a similar situation. We need to have a positive answer. Okay.